Welcome to Plus Talk on Plus Life, where we're all about turning positive into a plus. Today, my guest is Dr. William Schief. He is a professor in the Immunology and Microbial Science Department at Scripps Research, and we're going to talk about the headlines that were made back in February, the Moderna COVID vaccine and the potential for a new HIV vaccine. Doc, it is great to see you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, it's great to be here.
There were headlines made in February with the Moderna COVID vaccine and a lot of excitement around the potential of an HIV vaccine. So can you bring me up to speed? What is that all about? Where are we at?
Yeah, so we're not near an HIV vaccine yet. What we announced at a meeting in February was that we have a strategy, long-term strategy to try to make an HIV vaccine to elicit a certain kind of antibody. And that strategy involves giving a sequence of different shots to teach the immune system to have a specific kind of immune response. And if the first shot doesn't work, the whole vaccine strategy is dead in the water. And what we showed in a clinical trial, what we announced, is that we tested that first shot, and it seemed to work quite well. So we are in the door, going out on a path to try to make an HIV vaccine, but we've got a long way to go to get there.
Well, and you've been working a long time on this project. What's that moment like for you when that first shot seems to get you through the door?
It was very exciting. No doubt about that, because we were testing not only sort of one particular path, but we were testing an idea. And so we're not the only ones that can use this idea. Other people can, and they can go on their own paths. And at the end, we can sort of join them all together to try to make a vaccine. So it was doubly gratifying that our specific example worked, but the idea seems to be valid also, so more generally can be used.
When you look across the board with how all of this has come together with COVID, and also how you guys are working on HIV vaccines, just how important is the idea of collaborative science, of working together? Because traditionally it seems to have been, this pharmaceutical company and that pharmaceutical, and people don't want to collaborate. But I feel like we've come a long way since those early days, right?
Yeah, I think the HIV vaccine community is highly collaborative. There is competition among different groups, but even competitors are also collaborating. And I think everybody realizes that it's an incredibly difficult problem. It's an incredibly important problem. And we're not going to make it if people try to solve it on their own scientifically. It's too difficult and too complex. So our effort and the results of the clinical trial we announced were the result of many different people collaborating to do the clinical trial, but also they built on lots of collaboration to get to the point of doing the clinical trial. And so I think that is just a given that we have to do that. And also, we have been collaborating with Moderna ourselves to try to help accelerate our work. They weren't involved in our first clinical trial, but we're launching several clinical trials in collaboration with Moderna later this year to see if we can use their technology to get the same result. And if it works, then we can test the later stages of our vaccine strategy, which involves giving several shots, using Moderna's mRNA technology that should make it go much faster to do clinical trials in humans and find out, does the thing work, and do we keep stepping toward our end goal?
When you look at how quickly things moved, especially with the COVID-19 vaccine, does it give you hope that we can apply all of this science, apply all of the bureaucratical red tape that seemed to be laid aside and people were able to get on with their jobs? Does that give you hope that this might accelerate things when it comes to an HIV cure or vaccine?
Absolutely. And just for an example, the trials that we're launching later this year, for one example, we got approval from the funding agency last August that, yes, we'll give you the money, we'll pay Moderna to make the constructs. We're starting the clinical trial this summer. So it took less than a year from approval, here's the money, to them producing it, us designing the trial, and doing all the paperwork. So that's what we need to happen to make an HIV vaccine come sooner. It's not a guarantee. We still have to have a lot of difficult scientific breakthroughs to make an HIV vaccine, but with mRNA technology, it can reduce a lot of time that we would spend on purely technical things.
So for a vaccine to work, What needs to happen? What needs to fall into place?
We won't really know the answer to that until we've made one that demonstrates protection in humans. And you can look back and say, okay, these are all the things that this vaccine is achieving, and this is what was needed. What we think needs to happen at minimum is that we believe we need to induce what are called broadly neutralizing antibodies. So in the COVID vaccine that Moderna made and that Pfizer made and other companies are making, they're eliciting antibodies that bind to the COVID spike protein. Everyone knows that. HIV has the same kind of a spike protein, but it mutates much more rapidly. So the variants that you see emerging in COVID are like a sort of like a plaything compared to the number of variants that HIV generates. There are 100 million or more viruses, HIV viruses in the globe right now. So we need to induce antibodies not only that bind to the spike protein, but that bind to surface patches on the spike protein that don't change very much. And those are called broadly neutralizing antibodies. And it's just very difficult and requires a lot of educating of the immune system through a vaccine. But we have strategies to achieve it. And in a couple of different mouse studies, we and others have achieved that. So we do believe it's possible in humans. It's just going to take a while.
And you've mentioned that it would be a series of shots. Why is that?
Yeah, because basically this process of teaching the immune system, you start off by triggering a certain kind of cell that displays antibodies, and they're baby antibodies that it's displaying. And you've got to get the cell to mature along sort of a long path where the antibodies gain a lot of mutations, and they learn how to bind tightly to the HIV spike protein, and they learn how to bind just to the patches that don't mutate a whole lot. And it just takes a while to basically teach the antibodies and the cells to mutate enough so the antibodies can do their job.
When you think that it's 2021 and HIV has really been around for 40 years now, are you surprised that we haven't gotten further?
No, because, you can always wish that you had gone further. There are an incredibly large number of very smart people working in the HIV vaccine field, and they have pursued a lot of extremely logical, intelligent hypotheses. It's just that at every layer, at every time we fail, we realize, well, actually, HIV is more difficult than that. So I don't think it's very surprising. In that 40 years, we have gained, the whole community has gained an incredibly large amount of information about how HIV works and what are its weaknesses. We think we have the information necessary to design a vaccine and sort of win that battle, but it's still going to require a lot of work. And it requires a vaccine that will teach the human immune system to respond in a way that no previous vaccine has achieved before. So we'll have to see if we can get it to work the way we think we can get it to work.
Dr. William Schief, thank you so much for taking this time to talk us through it. So, broad strokes, it's exciting developments, but we got to keep on keeping on, right?
That's exactly right.
Thank you.
And we are.
Thank you. And thank you for your continued work. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for your interest.
Fascinating stuff. That is all the time we've got for today's Plus Talk. If you want more information, be sure to check out our website, pluslifemedia.com. And remember to follow us across social media. We are at Plus Life Media on all social platforms. Until next time, stay safe. We'll see you soon.